Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the council meeting for the 24th of July 2024. And could we please start with our usual karakia? Thank you. Whakataho tikiu, whakatagataho ki te tonga, kia mā kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai, e hiaki ana te atakura, hei tio, hei hoka, hei hauhu, te hei mōhio. Councillor Tamihana, is your light on free? No worries, thank you. Let's start the meeting. We have received apologies from Councillors Horowhenua and Proctor, and an apology for lateness for Councillor Grimstone. I'll move those. Seconded by Deputy Mayor Allen. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Also noting that Councillor Jennings is online. You can hear us, can you, Councillor Jennings?
I can, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All right, we have three members of the public who wish to talk to us today around items on our agenda. So could I please first welcome Richard to the table. Thank you. You know the protocols, Richard, I'm sure. Welcome.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate you letting me speak to the council about issues that concerns us. Thank you. All right, ready to go. Okay. I have a copy of the presentation if anybody wants to make copies of it. So my name is Richard Schimpf. I'm a member of the Horowhenua Equestrian Advocacy Group, and I want to talk to elected members about Target Reserve in Foxton. My last full-time employment before I retired was to be part of the senior management team with the Kapiti Coast District Council. So I consider I have a fair understanding of the workings of a district council, especially the relationship and responsibilities that council staff have to their elected members. One of those responsibilities, and if not the key responsibility, is to ensure elected members have all the information held by council staff about issues that are coming before council for resolution. Only then can elected members make knowledgeable, fair, and transparent decisions that affect their constituents. I know from past experience that elected members do not like surprises. It is my belief that elected members did not have all the information available to council staff when a resolution was passed to sign or enter into an MOU with the Manawatu Mountain Bike Club, giving them exclusive use of the Target Reserve Forest, and thereby banning horse riders from their only riding opportunity on council property. I would ask that elected members think about whether they knew these following issues when they made that resolution. Firstly, equestrians have been increasingly riding with council approval in Target Reserve Forest since 2018. Our members permanently held 3 keys to the forest and had established marked trails throughout the reserve with only a minimal effect on the flora and fauna. In response to a large number of equestrian submissions to the long-term plan, on the 8th of September 2021, council staff produced a paper on horse riding in council reserves. This paper identified both short and long-term options for equestrians to make greater use of the Target Reserve Forest. Equestrians responded that these options be seen as a real step forward in our relationship, and we much appreciated them raising that as possibilities. Twice in 2023, equestrians put forward proposals for the development of target reserve forest from an equestrian perspective. Both of these reports went to the Foxton Community Board, where I understand the CEO and mayor were in attendance, and to council during the long-term plan deliberations. Later in 2023 and again in early 2024, equestrians were told by council staff to hold fire on their development plans. We should wait until the much-awaited Target Reserve Management Plan was undertaken by staff, and that equestrians would certainly be invited to participate in those discussions. Equestrians were therefore completely surprised when the MOU with the Mountain Bike Club was signed by council staff, the chief executive. Equestrians, as current users of the reserve forest, were not consulted with, were not even notified. That agreement was on the table and never notified that it had taken place. I understand that even the Foxton Community Board wasn't consulted with in terms of that decision. It is therefore my contention that if any of the above facts were not conveyed to elected members by council staff before they were asked to vote on the exclusive MOU for the Mountain Bike Club, then such a decision was inappropriate, should have never been made, and therefore should be reconsidered by elected members when they have the full story. While some elected members were aware of some of those occurrences that I raised, and may have been swayed by the so-called compelling case that we hear about, if they knew that no consultation had taken place with the current users, that is the equestrians, the MOU should have never been considered by council, as such consultation had not taken place. As per the Local Government Act 2002, Section 82, entitled The Principles of Consultation, in part says consultation that a local authority undertakes in relation to any decision or any other matter must be undertaken with persons who will or may be affected by that decision. While equestrians have received some verbal apologies from several council staff for the lack of consultation, the fact that it did not occur is inexcusable. Equestrians are not giving up on this issue. Only today we received the replies from council on the official information requests, so we now have a copy of the MOU, which we only got today, and we've also got some response about how decisions were made. I only had a quick read of it, and I'll need to read it much further. As well, the New Zealand Equestrian Advocacy Group, which is our parent body, have taken this case to the Ombudsman, and we haven't heard anything. There's a case officer, but we haven't heard anything else. So equestrians are looking forward to some fair and open resolution of this issue. We certainly haven't got it at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Are there any questions or comments that councillors, you don't want to say? Do you want to add anything? Yeah. Yep.
Thanks, Rick. There's a couple of questions for clarity. Can you confirm that your group has never been granted continual use rights for access to Target Reserve, i.e. your members have to apply for a day key to each day they want to go into the Target Reserve?
We have 3 keys permanently, which our members keep. And in some cases, we call up and ask for permission to come in. Sometimes we never get a reply. But one of our members has Thursdays forever and a day. That's all that we've asked, Thursdays. So that's our day.
Thank you. So just to answer that question, your group has never been granted continual access rights, carte blanche from council officers or through council, i.e. you have to apply each day to go into that reserve. And the second question to that is, are council officers aware and approved the issue of 3 keys to your group permanently?
If we've got permanent keys, which we've got, and they were given to individual members of the horse riding community or equestrian community, and one of those, as I said, is a regular occurrence for every Thursday. They don't need to call up and say, we want to go in on Thursday. They can just go in on Thursdays.
Thanks, Ricky. So I'm just trying to clarify for other members. So there are 3 groups at Target Reserve, within Target Reserve, that have been granted continual access rights through MOUs arrangements. One being the Horowhenua Pistol Club, one being the Horowhenua Paintball Club, and one being the Manawatu Mountain Biking Club. Just confirming that your group is not one of those groups, is it?
No, our group is not one of those.
Rick, your comment around that you have been banned from using, have you been informed of that in writing?
No, we haven't been informed of it in writing. We've been informed verbally of that from the Parks and Reserves lead manager.
Right. But you've had further discussions with the parks and property people regarding some sort of trying to find some, way that we could move forward on this?
We've tried. We've had a couple of walkthroughs scheduled. One was achieved. And we stood around and discussed it. But at the end of the day, we didn't get anywhere. I was told that the resolution by council was not going to be changed. That was it. And in the MOU from the Mountain Bike Club, it talks about exclusive use. And it's in there. I've just read it just a few minutes ago. It talks about they don't want walkers in there or dogs in there, and they want exclusive use of that facility. Which means, and we've been told quite clearly by council staff that we cannot go in there.
Councillor Jennings, you wish to ask a question?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Rick, I'm just trying to understand if you're, first I'll ask if you're aware of the actual wording of the resolution that council made last year. And if not, I'm very happy to read it to you, and then I have a couple of questions.
No, I understand it. I've read it.
Yeah, so I guess I'm trying to understand what it is that you are unhappy about in terms of that resolution, because that resolution, to me, clearly indicates that there is an intention to have a development plan for the reserve, and that it will take into account various views and considerations, expressly including horse riding. And then it also says that we will proceed ahead with the MOU. I'm just really not understanding what it is that you find so unworkable or offensive in terms of that resolution.
Well, my understanding is the MOU has been signed. And I've got a copy of the signed MOU with the chief executive. And as a matter of fact, it was dated the 2nd of February, which I can't really understand at all, because the council resolution wasn't until 31st of, was it May or March or one of those dates? Pardon me? What? March? May?
2023 was that resolution, not it was last year. Yeah.
Yes. So that was going to be my point, is the resolution clearly says we will continue with the Manawatu Mountain Biking Club to progress an MOU. And so it considers, and rightly considers, that there'd be 2 separate processes that would be envisaged, that there's a development process, but in the meantime, there would also be progress towards an MOU with the mountain biking club. I'm just really not understanding what it is that you are suggesting that council hasn't done right here, because it's clearly is signposting to a consultation process that will come as part of the development plan for Target Reserve.
Well, it's my understanding the MOU is signed. It's a 5-year contract between the mountain bike club and the council. I've got a copy of a signed MOU. So that seems to be a fait accompli. If you use an analogy, it's like bolting the barn door after the horses already left. If you're taking away that forestry area from any future consideration, that's where we ride. That's the place we ride, in that forestry area. We don't ride on the rest of the forest of the Target Reserve. So it seems like something's not very clear here.
Mr. Mayor, can I just have one final question?
Certainly.
Yeah, so Rick, I guess my last question is, do you think that the equestrian groups are working constructively and in good faith with council? Because it feels to me very adversarial, and it feels like the process of going through the complaint to the Ombudsman was not conducive to, I guess, a good faith relationship where it is clear that there is a consultation process that is envisaged and that will happen. I guess I'm just keen to hear your thoughts on what's the state of the relationship, because it seems very adversarial and, to be honest, to be quite frank, quite entitled. If I'm being honest with you.
Well, I can't say it would be entitled, because we've been talking to council for, I've been talking to council for the last 15 years, and we've made a number of cases for certain things to happen. We've never, ever had any positive action from those discussions, other than allowing us to go in Target Reserve Forest. That's the only place we can ride on council property. We were thrown out of Cousins Reserve when the mountain bikers wanted it for themselves. And now we've been thrown out of Target Reserve because the mountain bikers don't want Mazengarb anymore, don't want Cousins anymore. They want where we're at.
Look, thanks, Rick. I'm going to bring this to a close in terms of appreciate your time and your advocacy on behalf of the equestrian group, and no doubt there will be some further conversations. Hopefully, I just wanted to check though with the GM for the area of, in terms of that development plan for Target Reserve, and where does it sit exactly at the moment? Thank you, Your Worship. Intentions are to kick into that process very shortly, with consultation with the key user groups occurring starting within the next 2 weeks. We want to move relatively quickly given the challenges we're facing at Target Reserve, and bring something back to council, or a workshop with council in September. So it is on our work program, and it's something we are looking to progress. Thank you. So appreciate everything.
Could I just please add one thing quickly, because it's important for councillors to understand. At the recent meeting we had at Target Reserve with Rick, your group, and Mountain Bike Club, and Sean Hester was there from as council officer, it was clearly outlined to the Christian people and the Mountain Bike Club that management plan work is due to commence, that there'll be full consultation with the equestrian club in terms of other use around that site as well. So, and that is Sean's undertaken, and Lacey and the team have undertaken to lead that work and include the mountain biking club in that. So that is going to happen.
Yeah, thank you. So there'll be further consultation.
Thank you, sir.
Cheers. Thank you. Okay, our next public participant is Vivian. Thank you, Vivian. Welcome.
Good afternoon. I don't know where to dip into this, so I'm just going to dip into the fact that I want to be included, if I may, in page 533, where you have a delegation talking about the live-in landfill. As you know, I am NLG, and the purpose of NLGs is to create a forum to share perspectives on monitoring results and discuss strategies for maintaining and improving the landfill operation. It's something I thought was rather very neat and tidy, and NLG are not public to be excluded. We are participants in the negotiation, mediation for the Horowhenua area.
Sorry, Viv, can I just make a point here? Because today's decision is around the money that we are spending to remediate the leachate from the old dump. The decision was based on a report that was public on the 8th of May, where we decided the best option in terms of dealing with that leachate. Today is simply about signing off the contract, and then what that decision will then be made public. It just is commercially sensitive in terms of the money, and that is why it is in committee. But once that decision is made, it will be released to the public.
Okay, I just wondered if I could sit in and not make any comment, just listen.
No, I'm sorry, no.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all.
And our last public participant is Charles. Welcome, Charles.
I'm speaking on the same sort of issue that Viv, I only got 5 minutes or something. Right, it's all about the same thing on that page of 553 or something like that. All right? And it's about what the mayor has said as well. Like the exclusion of the public and the chief executive delegation of the living landfill, so and so, at C1 and C2, C3, whatever that is. The question is it secret deals behind closed doors? I'll carry on. Or is it, some would say that it may be corruption? Ongoing debt of the living landfill is about $4 million. And that's not including all the consultants you've got on the blimey living landfill. Heaps of dollars. And poor old ratepayers. Now, the governments, you people of the governments, probably haven't read through the resource consent conditions in consideration to the NLG, the living landfill, what Viv was talking about. Because you should be reading the resource consent conditions to the living landfill conditions of the NLG. And that is specific conditions to the living landfill neighbourhood liaison group. Pages 6 to 9 and bullet points 32 to 36. Because there are many serious breaches of those resource consent conditions. And the council is the permit holder. And you as government should know about these. We don't have time in 5 minutes to explain all these things. I can go through this resource consent condition piece by piece, but wouldn't have enough time to explain to you. Like this thing you're having about these consultants doing whatever's doing and the money to be spent under the table there. We of the NLG, part of the NLG condition is we only have one meeting a year. So a lot of things are happening at the landfill we are not, as NLG members, are not aware of. But in saying that, the district council is the permit holder, the regional council is the regulator, and they are part of the NLG. But then there's other of us from the community who are NLGs. And like I say, there's a hang of a lot of breaches of resource consent conditions. Hang of a lot. And I haven't got time to go through the listings of these breaches. And this thing today, well, this proposal today is one of them. we were not informed. Because we only have one meeting a year. We have another group called the PMG. They have one meeting a month or something like that, and making decisions behind closed doors. Now, the last NLG meeting we had, the person in charge of that area said, the next a review of the resource consent conditions in 2029. Rubbish, he doesn't know his own story. The next resource consent review of conditions is in October this year. So people like Viv and I and other people in the community being left out of this review. These are the questions I'm asking. Yeah, we are not the public. We are memberships of a committee. As such, we may be part of the public, but we are members. We exclude it. So these things like you can have this consultant wants to do things. You've had so much consultants talking about the landfall and mitigations. They don't work. I know Papatūnuku. I know Ranganui. I know about earthquakes. I know about the aquifers. I know about all these things. So does Viv. And a lot of these experts don't know things I know about Mother Earth. That proposal that is intended to happen will not work. I'll tell you that now. And I'll be laughing in a couple of years if you go through it. So what I'm saying is the rights of us NLG members like Viv and I and a few others, our rights are being eroded about that. There's a lot of things that goes on in this landfill. We find out about things, what's going on. But that's what I've got to say about the living landfill. But there's another serious issue I've got to talk about, and it's about environmental considerations at Hokio Beach. Now, I don't know where the District Council and the Regional Council stand on the Hokio Stream, because there's two components down the Hokio Stream with all the weeds and seriousness there. There's one part of the Hokio Stream that don't need a resource consent. There's another part of the Hokio Stream that need a resource consent. Now, sometimes the public will come and say about a stormwater system, they'll go to either Regional Council or District Council, there's a problem. Regional Council say, no, that's not ours, that's District Council. You go to the District Council, they go, no, that's not it. You go to the Regional Council. People are confused. Now, from the bridge down to out to the sea, by the reserve there, has got to have a resource consent conditions put in. That'll take a year and a half if it's not on the fast track. My concern is that park, and you got all the kids around, they think it's grass. If they walk into that water and get drowned by the grass in that, someone's going up for manslaughter. Because I'm telling you, and I've told Regional Council, I want someone to be accountable if a kid drowns out there in that grass, because no one's doing anything about it. And we cannot wait for bloody resource consent conditions. So I don't know, because you've got a community that's urban, and then you've got the coastal area, which is Regional Council. So I don't know who's who and who's where. So I'd like you people to think about it. Which side of the fence are you on in the stream? And that issue is so important because of the kids. That's what I care for. All right? Thank you very much.
Charles. Look, first, there are no secret deals being made behind closed doors. I can assure you of that. Two, the resource consent breaches are exactly why we are doing the remediation of the old dump in terms of the leachate. Those breaches are being sorted, and we have put in a special rate in this year's rate so that we can actually deal with it. There is no decisions that are being made by the PMG. All the decisions are being made by this table, and they are being as open and transparent as possible. As I said to Viv, the only reason why today's decision around signing off the contract for the money being spent is because it is commercially sensitive. When it is done today, hopefully, it will be released, and you will have every opportunity to see what we've done. As I said, the 8th of May 2024, only a couple of months ago, was when we decided what we thought was the best option to go forward in terms of remediation of that leachate. So there are no rights being eroded. In terms of the Horowhenua stream, yes, that has been brought to our attention recently, and the Chief Executive and officers have been having conversations with Horizons around whose responsibility it is what. Horizons are definitely pulling back and saying it's not their responsibility. So we are making sure that we are looking in terms of ways that we can deal with that Horowhenua stream. And look, acknowledge the fact that it is an issue and that we need to do something about it.
But the resource consent conditions that you just talked about is only one issue of the many breaches. I do not have time to go through that list of breaches to the resource consent condition. But if you need to talk about it at some stage, I will go through it. And one of the issues is with the regional council, district council, anything that comes out is not for me to live or have to go and find our own information. This is what is happening. Because things that we're not being informed, so we have to come out and dig around.
Okay.
There's a lot of issues like that that are breaches.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good day.
Cheers.
I just wanted to ask you a question for
Sure.
if I can. Firstly, thank you acknowledging you raising this with us today. And obviously, I'm one of the movers of the action and the resolution that was made to progress with this, and I did that under the assurance that the PMG, NLG, and all the parties were actually satisfied with the scope and the design that was going forward. So I suppose the question for me is, in the design, and it's really for our officers to understand more than me, but in our design, what is it that we're failing? Because all the workshops I've been involved in and all the correspondence I've seen, I was sort of under the assurance that all the parties were comfortable with progressing what we were doing, because if we don't progress today, where does that leave any remediation being done? And you know as well as I do, I've fished and lived at that area most of my life. So I'm just interested to know where the failure is in the design, not so much around the complexities of the finance being committed.
There are many failures in that design because one of the things is that if they go along with that proposal, are you going to block off the culvert so nothing goes into the Horowhenua stream? No. And then because of pumping stuff out there into the sewage treatment plant out to the pot, that awa is contaminated out there. So you're taking the crap from one area to the other. But we weren't talked at the NLG about. We were told, oh, this is a proposal. The NLG didn't agree with it, as such.
So I can read you from the report that we're going to consider later on, Charles, that says the council has consulted with the governance project management group and the community neighbourhood liaison group. Concerns raised by the PMG were responded to in a letter to the chair of PMG on the 17th of April. So both the PMG and NLG have been consulted on this.
No, the PMG and the NLG are two separate.
Yeah, I appreciate that, but they've both been consulted.
It was talked about a proposal, but there was no agreement, not from the NLG.
So they didn't raise any matters.
Right,
Okay, yeah, look,
We have tried to raise matters, and Charles has said, what is the options coming on the table? And unfortunately, they never tell us anything, do they?
No.
well, that's a matter for the PMG. Daniel, do you want to add anything to that? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think Charles rightfully points out that the NLG, in terms of consent conditions, is required to meet on a yearly basis. We, however, have been meeting much more frequently, certainly over the last 18 months, on 3 occasions when the BPO has been taken up, and before the BPO was selected, that was the decision made in May. There was quite a range of options that were looked at. Acknowledge that certainly on the first occasion it was rather difficult to get to a point of understanding. We spent quite a lot of time on the first slide with a number of conversations around consent conditions and the like. Those minutes from the last NLG have been circulated to members. They'll be up online shortly, as are the ones with the project management group. I think what it is, it's important to note that the direction given by Councillor May was to commence with a design process and consultation. So the decision to move forward with BPO was really a mandate to get out there and start to consult with iwi partners to further work alongside members of the NLG and PMG into what will ultimately be a publicly notified consent process. So now it's not the it's not a decision made. We're basically we've got mandate from the council to move forward with a project, and it's certainly not a developed design. We haven't even undertaken a consent level design at this point. So it's very much selecting the best practical option. And there would be three occasions that we have been to the PMG, presented in person. We haven't done that level of engagement with the NLG. We haven't done that level of engagement with the PMG because they were quite comfortable that it's a consent and they will be engaged further down the line. So priority focus has been with the NLG to date.
So, Charles, we're still at the early stages of this process.
My serious concern is the costing of it to failure.
Okay, appreciate that. So noted. Thank you.
Good.
Okay, let's proceed with our meeting then. And we have no late items. Are there any councillors who wish to declare a declaration of interest? Being none, let's move to number 5, confirmation of the minutes. Could I move confirmation that the minutes of Council 12th of June 2024 be accepted as a true and correct record, that the public excluded minutes of Council 12th of June 2024 be accepted as a true and correct record? Seconded by Councillor Young. All those in favour? Against? Carried. And then the recommendation that the minutes of Council 26th of June 2024 be accepted as a true and correct record. Seconded by Councillor Young again. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Moving to our reports, 6.1, the mayoral report. Move 2.1, 2.2 that the report be received. Seconded by Deputy Mayor Allen. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Any items that councillors wish to bring to attention or comment on? Deputy Mayor Allen.
Just one, Mr. Mayor, page 30, just to welcome the initiative to change the role of Council Mark into simply judging more into a supportive role as well, and very apt that it's now been renamed to Horowhenua, so I just want to acknowledge that shift of direction there.
Thank you. I think also this might be the first time that we've included the LGNZ full monthly report for councillors to ensure that it is good reading, and I'm actually quite encouraged by the fact that there's so much information in there and reflects the amount of advocacy and work that's being done in support of the local government sector. So a good move. All right, moving to 6.2. Sorry, Councillor Tupapa.
Yeah, just a couple quick things from your report. Of the list of meetings and things that you attended, pleased to see the Lake Trust on there. Regarding the boy racer activity, I just needed to, and it has been raised with you before the meeting, but in Clint's absence, he had a question around whether the land transport bylaw we're going to be looking at could address or some of this behaviour, and I'll bring that up when it comes. The only matter I'd like to, positive is the success of MTFJ on page 31. Of the 1,111 employment outcomes, how much were ours? I believe that we were leading, if not second, in those results. And if that's the case, despite the reduction in funding from 10 million to 8, do we get a portion that reflects how good you've been doing?
The answer to your first question around numbers, we were over 100 for the year 22-23. This last year we were 52 for the year 23-24, which is still one of the leading numbers in the country. There's no doubt that the reduction of funding is a challenge, and it's been further reduced for this year. Our target for this year is 38, I think. But we will, once there's a report due to go to MTFJ before the end of this month, and I will ensure that that's included in our next council meeting. But yeah, look, it's working really well and being very positive, but yeah, it is a challenge with the reduced funding, and we are facing that with the whole country in terms of that.
Councillor Browning. Really just a quick thank you to you, Your Worship, that you did attend the Foxton Volunteer Fire Brigade Gold Star presentation. Following conversation I had with you, I actually did receive the invite some time ago, but didn't diarise it, so hence didn't appear that night. So I'm sorry I missed it, but I'm glad that you were there on our behalf, so thanks for that.
Always good to attend those volunteer fire brigade events and recognise those special people who have contributed so much service. All right, so now moving to 6.2, which is the Chair's report for the Te Awaho Foxton Community Board. And welcome, John, if you'd like to come to the table. While John does that, can I move 2.1, 2.2, seconded by Deputy Mayor Allen. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Welcome, John. Anything you'd like to comment or add to your report?
No, I'd just like to emphasise the first comment that the Community Board was very grateful to the workshop we had with the councillors. We hope that will continue because that helps the communication, and communication is a very important factor. The other positive thing is that we're on the cusp of lots of things happening, right? We've done some very good work with Robin Ryder and Susan Phelps on Foxton Futures. We've had 4 community consultations. They've been going very well. We're now working with Robin and Susan to develop the next stage before going back to the community again, which is good. And we've got a meeting with Horizons this week on the Foxton East Drainage Scheme, which is, we consider, a major step forward. So really, we're right at the beginning of lots of good work.
Any questions for John? Look, thanks, John. Appreciate that, and endorse your comments around the workshop. It was valuable, and I think we can both learn from those exchanges, and I'm sure they will be put into the calendar in future, especially over the next 15 months or so of this term. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving to 7.1, which is the Land Transport Bylaw Review, and Vi and James are going to join us at the table. Could I move 3.1, 3.2 that the report be received, seconded by Councillor Tukapua? All those in favour? Against? Carried. I'm not quite sure whether we're trying to save money, but it seems very dark in here at the moment, doesn't it? It's not just my eyesight, I hope.
Cool. Kia ora koutou. So this report before you today relates to seeking approval from Council to consult on the proposed Land Transport Bylaw. The purpose of the Land Transport Bylaw is to enable Council to regulate parking and the use of all roads under the control of Horowhenua District Council, but also provides for enforcement provisions. We have a current bylaw here in Horowhenua, and the current bylaw is due to automatically revoke in November this year. And of note in the bylaw is the parking provisions, most notably the inclusion of restricted parking areas and metered parking areas. And I just bring that to your attention in light of the recent LTP decision to increase parking meter income through fees. And it's the Land Transport Bylaw that enables us to set those parking restrictions to then recover the fees through metered fees. Alongside the recommendations, to seek confirmation and permission to consult on the bylaw, you'll see recommendation 3.7 relates to speed management provisions, which I'm going to hand over to James to talk a little bit about.
Thank you, Vi. Yes, so as a result of the changes to the Land Transport Act 1998 and the setting speed limit rule of 2022, the nation's speed limits are now captured and enforced and registered through the National Speed Limit Register, effectively making our bylaws redundant, and we are required by the Land Transport Register of Land Transport Record Speed Limits Regulations of 2022 to revoke our bylaws at the earliest convenience, which, as we're reviewing the Land Transport bylaw now, it is our earliest convenience.
Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Councillor Tupapua?
I've got one question and one request. The question is, so on under the discussion piece 5.4, where it highlights the main changes to the draft, or the first one is about shared pathways. Could you just expand on what that means? Because you had attached the 2017 and then the 2024 draft, and the formats are different, and so tracking the changes and it was quite hard to follow. But if you could just explain that one for me, please.
Operatively, the changes aren't significant. It's effectively defining where it's legal to ride on a shared path, to ride a bicycle on a shared path, opposed to a footpath, and it allows us the opportunity to update the list of shared pathways if we've built a few since 2017.
Cool. And the request is, and this is following on from the boy racer piece I mentioned earlier, under the consultation 7.1, where you'll engage the police, I wondered if you could specifically ask them if there were any additional rules or things we could incorporate to strengthen the enforcement of that type of activity. They may just say, oh, we've got enough we can work with, or they'd like to see something added. And this comes from someone with a police background. That was probably the best approach.
Yes, we can definitely do that. So the plan in terms of consultation with them will be to send out an email basically soliciting their feedback, and in that we can ask for any recommendations around changes or feedback around changes we can make to improve that if you like.
Councillor Brannigan.
Thanks, James, or probably more via this one. Parking and traffic restrictions, section 32. 32.7 talks about banning parking on berms, and I'm sure the table can draw the irony from that. Can someone explain this a little bit to me?
Yes, I'm happy to do that, Councillor Brannigan. Parking on the berms risks damaging infrastructure is effectively the primary reason. A lot of the district's utilities are buried in fairly shallow and weak soil in the berms. It's where the majority of our water infrastructure, the laterals, water mains, sewer mains, aging infrastructure is put at risk when vehicles, particularly heavier vehicles, park on the berms. And often it reduces the life of our footpaths and curb and channel also. That's effectively the main driver for us in looking to put this in place. It could have quite a significant hidden cost to our infrastructure caused by the damage of vehicles parking on berms.
As a follow-up, Your Worship, if you will allow, please. Okay. Understand that, but it's well known in the previous discussions that not all our community looks like Liver. And if you think about our coastal communities and our communities outside of Liver, very narrow streets. There is nowhere to park but the grass berm. So we're going to have vehicles. If that's the case, we'll have vehicles parking on the road. So I think it's something we need to be very carefully about. And the public reaction, no doubt, when spring comes, will be a hit anyway. If we're suddenly going to say we're not going to look after our berms, but we're also not going to let you park on them, I think we've got a problem. So let's, we need to give some serious consideration, I would suggest. I'm not sure how this is going to work outside of living.
Respond to that, James?
Yes, I suppose I would agree that we are expecting a strong level of engagement on that particular point, and it is, I suppose, somewhat intentional that we're wanting to get that feedback. We can go through a consultation process and perhaps adapt the bylaw to suit. There may be places where that particular rule is not fit for purpose, and we may be looking to make alterations based on the public's feedback.
Yeah. Deputy Mayor Allen.
Yes, and for me, front of mind is to seek the feedback on this one, so I support it going forward. But just to note that historically there was such a clause in a previous bylaw, and I will recall that it was about enabling action where needed. So it was not about ruthlessly policing every situation. It was just about saying there are occasions where we need the power to act. So, sorry, in terms of a question, I hope you agree with that.
You're stretching the bow there a fair bit. Councillor Tamihana.
Just touching on the berm one as well as. I do find it intriguing, and I think it's not straightforward, and one I know is it's not well policed and monitored. I forever see cars parked on footpaths and watch people on mobility scooters have to drive around a car. There's a rule there, no one can actually enforce it. And here we are now looking at one for mowing berms. I want to take this one captured my eye, so I went and looked up what's a vehicle. Four wheels. You can't even park your lawnmower on the berm if we pass this bylaw. That's what it means. So, and when you talk about infrastructure being damaged, I would suggest that's probably not a car. I would suggest that's probably not a small ute. I would imagine it's probably got more to do with large trucks and tractors that park within our towns and use those berms for purposes of not taking their truck back to their yard. So, while I support that something's got to be done, I don't support that it's a blanket thing. And the other thing I'm very mindful of is this council that I've seen in my lifetime have taken away a lot of parking, and parking is getting thinner, doors are getting closer. Even outside here, I'm virtually parked next to Councillor Olsen's door and I can't open my car door because I've got to stay inside the lines. We have lots of sporting events that happen within our sports grounds and also around our schools. There is not appropriate parking, and Playford Park's a great example. So what I'm saying is the bylaw going to allow for this? How stringently is it going to be monitored, and who's the police? Because I pick up on Councillor Allen's point. If it's an ongoing matter with a person that continually parks in a space that's causing a neighbour disturbance, then absolutely there should be a provision to allow that neighbour to raise it. But I don't think we have the ability or the capability to monitor it and police it ourselves. So that's my thing.
Look, just reiterating, today is about process. It's about starting the process to create a bylaw around. It's not talking about the individual things that make up that bylaw. It is about just starting or initiating that process that we can get that public feedback in terms of whether that's possible or not. And through submissions and hearings and everything like that, those discussion points will no doubt be front and centre, I would imagine.
Just ask one. Sorry, Rogan.
A question.
It is a question to the second one, 5.42, how we're changing the wording about using such and such to plate for our meters. surely there's some wording we can encapsulate that actually is neither of those, and it just allows council to be able to operate no matter what technology is brought in around parking metering and how we collect parking fees. I just think it's ridiculous that we're going to change from one word to another. That's it.
So noted, I'm sure. Councillor Boyd.
I wanted to clarify your earlier point about this being the process for kicking off a bylaw, because effectively we're being asked to send this draft to consultation or bring it back for workshopping. If we were to send it to consultation as is, any changes we wanted to make that didn't appear through consultation could not be made due to the local government rules on consultation. Is that correct or not?
Vi, can you
Yeah.
give some clarity on that?
So this isn't the last time that you will see it. There'll be another decision that needs to come before council around adoption. And so this doesn't mean that what you see today, if there are no public submissions, that it then automatically goes through. It still comes through before adoption. At that point, you might choose not to and send it back. But I just, again, earlier around the parking provisions, we might need to make a decision earlier on around whether parking sits in there or it doesn't.
But if we wish to introduce or remove things that would be significant and require consultation, we should be introducing them now or sending this back for workshopping rather than sending it out to consultation. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to. Is that correct, or can we amend bylaws without consultation?
Does that, I suppose it's whether they trigger that significance policy in terms of whether, there may be small amendments that don't necessarily trigger that significance. That's all. It would be my interpretation of that. Yeah. Thank you, team. Okay, so we have recommendations 3.3 to 3.7. It's my intention to put those in block, and I'm happy to move that, and the Deputy Mayor is happy to second that. Is there any debate or discussion on that? If not, I'll put those recommendations. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Moving to 7.2, Public Places Bylaw Review. And Vi, I assume you're coming back to the table. While Vi does so, can I move 3.1, 3.2 that the report be received? Seconded by Deputy Mayor Allen. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Thanks, Vi.
Thanks. So, kia ora anō. This next report relates to the review of Council's Public Places Bylaw. Before Council today is a number of recommendations that form part of the statutory process required of us under the Local Government Act for the review of the bylaw. Officers have carried out a review of the current Public Places Bylaw. We've identified some changes where we have drafted a proposed draft Public Places Bylaw, which is included in the report. You will see that incorporated into the proposed draft bylaw are some smoke-free and vape-free considerations and controls proposed regarding beaches controlled by council. Both of those matters were matters discussed around this table and where elected members had asked officers to look at incorporating those into the Public Places Bylaw review. The current Public Places Bylaw review doesn't need to be completed until May 2026, but the reason for bringing that forward now is to include those considerations that we've recently spoken about. I am conscious that this is the first time the Public Places Bylaw review has been before Council, so as part of the decision making today, elected members may wish to consider whether the bylaw drafted as proposed at the moment captures everything that elected members want it to capture, or whether it needs to come back to officers for some further work that could be through workshops. Happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Jennings, got your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question, Vi. I'm just wondering, whether there's been, as part of developing this up, whether there's been any conversation with police as a potential, obviously, enforcement agent, and I'm particularly focusing on the beach additions. And if there hasn't been, could we build a step into our process where there is kind of a pre-consultation step where we specifically engage with police to gauge whether they believe that the changes give them sufficient scope and ability to kind of enforce some of the things that they might be seeing, particularly in those beach areas. And if there was any concern about the framing, then it could come back to the table before going to consultation? Or do you see that as an unnecessary step?
Thank you, Councillor Jennings. So to answer the first question around whether we've done any pre-engagement with police, no, we haven't. And then to answer the second question around there, is it worthwhile doing that before going out to public consultation? Possibly. We haven't gone out and asked the question of police. They might have some very valuable, I'm sure they will have some very valuable feedback that we could incorporate into the bylaw. So I don't think that would be a wasted task or a wasted time if we were to go about doing that. That said, if I'm hearing right, it would be to bring that back to officers. We'd work through some changes, do some pre-consultation before coming back to the table again to look at a proposed draft bylaw and seeking permission to go out and consult. So, yeah, absolutely, we could work that in if that's the will of elected members.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, can I just have a follow-up?
Yes.
Yeah, so actually, by just thinking about this, actually, to be honest, even if the police gave us, so even if we didn't do that preliminary step, when we just went straight to public consultation, if we got, obviously, perspectives from police that there needed to be some rewording or perhaps some additional phrasing of things, we could make those changes in response to the consultation, right? And we wouldn't have to do any further round of consultation unless they were really major. Is my understanding correct there?
That's correct, yes. Unless they have proposed something completely different that isn't already within the proposed draft bylaw that's there, we wouldn't need to do another round of consultation. We would wrap their feedback up into this public consultation process if that's the way we go about it.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Tamiha.
Thanks, Vi. Just picking up on Councillor Jennings' points too. I wasn't just thinking about the police. I was actually thinking about fire and emergency as well, because I think we've had on this council before where it's been raised about access to coastal areas, particularly by ambulances and fire engines and things like that. So, it would be good to collate their feedback. But more than that, I think there could be some pre-iwi engagement too. I think there's stuff that's been put here that potentially, if it went to another stage and we didn't ensure our partners were aware that we were having these types of conversations, it could be a negative perception, perhaps, that council were going ahead with something in an area that's critical to them. And so I would ask that if there was a pre-criteria or as Sam described, then I would hope that fire, police, ambulance and iwi could feed into such a process before it comes to us. Because it's only going to hit us, make a decision, and then go out there anyway. That's my thought.
So, just for clarity, you're suggesting that we leave this on the table and do pre-consultation before we go out to consultation?
Yeah, I actually think that is what I'm asking for.
Okay.
All right. And just the secondary, sorry, Bernie, was just around the enforcement officer role. I just posed the question only. Is that a role for a council enforcement officer, or is that a role for a council enforcement officer to pursue through police?
Thank you, Councillor Tamihana. So it can depend. It depends on what the activity is that we're trying to regulate or to control at the time. If it is use of a vehicle, for example, that's most likely to be through police because they have greater powers to stop that vehicle than we do. If it's about parking the vehicle, though, that's us.
Right, can you just turn those off? And so, who's responsible to asking someone to be removed from a beach if that was a scenario. And that's all. I'll leave it there, but that was my thinking. Yeah.
Councillor Boyle, did you wish to
ask
a question?
I've got a few questions. Electoral signage, we've got removal 2 days after the election day. I know the general election is removal before election day. Wellington Council's removal before election day. Is there any reason why we're leaving signs up on election day?
So what we've done as part of the review is incorporated our current local election signage policy into the public places bylaw. The rules or the controls that are within the public places bylaw don't trump what's in national legislation and requirements around elections anyway. And so the Electoral Act is going to control a lot of that anyway. This is around if someone doesn't, giving council officers powers to do something rather than relying directly on the Electoral Act.
Okay, but to clarify, local government makes our decisions locally for local body elections. Yeah, so local body election signs would be allowed to, well, currently are allowed to stay up on election day and 2 days after without current policy. Is there any reason why it's this way, other than just because the people around the table making the decision thought it might be easier to take them down 2 days later?
It was incorporating the current local election signage policy into the public places bylaw. So rather than making a change to what was in the policy that's already been around this table and decided, it's just picking it up and chucking it in there.
13.3 about no fires in public places. This would clearly include beaches in its entirety. Is that the intent of it, that no one would be able to apply even a small fire to cook a couple fish on the beach at any time without breaching our bylaw?
So the intent around there is about putting in place a control where there currently isn't a control for managing fires in public places. Much like some of the other enforcement or other provisions in the bylaw, we're only going to know about it when there's a complaint. And so it's about being able to do something when there is a complaint that we currently don't have any control for.
Cool. No major comment on that. Number 12, skating devices. Could we go with potentially a more generalised term? Our definition of skating devices only includes self-propelled devices. If I've got an electric skateboard, I can just go wherever I want and ignore that. And could we also potentially review the areas that we're blocking? Bath Street is blocked from the school to Horowhenua to Oxford. That section from Salisbury down to Horowhenua, there's never anyone walking there. It's a big flat footpath. That's an area that kids traffic up and down from school. I don't quite see the logic in some of our design there. Maybe we could review that as well.
So noted, you'll be making a submission on behalf of skaters. I can see that, Councillor Boyle. It's good. Okay, so just for clarity, Councillor Tamiana, are you making a procedural recommendation that we lay this issue on the table? Thanks, Vice, sorry.
Yes, I would like to do that.
Okay. Is there a seconder for that? There doesn't appear to be. So, therefore, we will move to recommendations 3.3 to 3.6. And Councillor Deputy Mayor Allen is comfortable in moving that. Is there a seconder, please? Councillor Olsen, thank you. Any further discussion or debate? Deputy Mayor Allen.
Just briefly, Mr. Mayor, speaking to section 14, which is about vehicles, the import of it is about access to the beach and also abuse of the dune system. I guess those are the two drivers for that. There was discussion during a workshop some time ago about whether that sort of matter best lie within the public places bylaw, whether it needs its own separate bylaw. And fine. I've spoken prior to this meeting, and it's my view at this stage that it's important that we keep it in this forum for a start, hear the feedback, because it will be a very useful test case for whether or not that is a correct and appropriate mechanism for it. If it's not working, then it's absolutely essential, I think, and I suspect Councillor Brannigan would agree too, it's absolutely essential then we move to scenario 2, which may well be a separate bylaw. That was the only specific matter I wanted to address.
Councillor Boyle.
We're in debate on this?
Yes.
Great. I'd prefer to be opting for the option 2, which is, option 1, which is refer this matter back and we do further workshops on it to ensure that we've got a draft that we're actually comfortable going out to consultation with. The few issues I've raised, as well as a whole lot of other considerations as to does Levin want to be a prohibitive town anymore against buskers or hawkers or things like that? Or do we want to be a more open and accepting place where, yeah, we want people to come and play music on the street. Yeah, we want little people to set up stalls. I'd like to see us go through a workshop and do some further drafting on this before sending it out for consultation and have some of those discussions, but that's just my thoughts on it. Happy for this motion to pass, but I'll be voting against it.
Right, no further discussion. I'll put those recommendations. All those in favour? Against? Motion's carried too. So the motions are carried. Thank you. So now moving to 7.3, which is our final CapEx carry forward to 2024 to 2025, and moving 2.1 and 2.3 that the report be received. Seconded by Councillor Brannigan. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Jacinta, you're going to talk to this. Thank you.
Thank you, and through you, Your Worship. So, thanks everyone. So, this process is the final stage, in effect, of the long-term plan and setting the budget for this financial year that we've now begun in. As part of, I guess, last year, when I say last year, I mean 23-24, we had a significantly higher budget than we ended up spending and agreed we could fund, and that was in the range of 38 to 40 million. So, in terms of where we have landed, it is quite close to that, landing at what we think is 36.6 million in terms of what has been delivered for this last financial year. Effectively, the projects that we're putting forward to you today to carry forward the budget into the next financial year are those that are effectively are in progress, and it relates to really the timing of when they're due to be complete, going over 2 financial years. So things are well in place, but to enable the team to finish the projects that have been agreed, formally, the council needs to approve that funding to be moved from the last financial year into this financial year. In terms of what that we're doing, it says it in the paper, is for the budget for 24-25. It was agreed in the long-term plan to be 42.492 million. That will effectively increase it to 45.4 million. Another point to note in there is that includes an additional 900,000 for the fluoridation project, which has already been agreed by council, but that just is a formality in terms of making sure that it forms part of the overall budget for the organisation for the year. So happy to take any questions.
Any questions? Councillor Tukapua.
Just one around 4.3, where it talks about the classification potentially changing between capital and operating. Can you explain that a bit more?
Yep, for sure. So it relates specifically, the main area it relates to, we wanted to make sure we were clear on it, is related to our information services budget. So in that area, it's more a technical thing from an accounting perspective. So that operating one is we're required to treat it as operating, and that relates to any software that we have that effectively is on the cloud, so where you can log in and the software sits on the cloud. If that's the case and we spend any money in that area, well, we treat it as debt funded and treat it as any other capital project. From a technical accounting perspective, it has to be treated as operating. So what we're saying there is, if, for example, we want to invest we might need to invest a little bit more in the hardware area, or some of the software that we end up doing is not cloud-based, then we might need to transfer that classification between capital and operating. So that's what that's signaling there.
Kira, just one question from me. Just wanted to know if any of the works for Taraika that are in here, are they for anything to do with EWA, or are these totally separate?
Yeah, separate. Yeah.
Councillor Jennings?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hey, Jacinta. Look, just a little bit of a preamble and then a couple of questions. So, obviously, over the last couple of years, we've been really building confidence in terms of essentially delivering what we say we will deliver in terms of the capital program, and hopefully that's being taken note of by Standard & Poor's and other external people that are interested in our overall management of our capital program. But so I just wanted to confirm, just so that it's absolutely clear for the public and everyone listening, that this carry forward doesn't actually mean that there's any increase in borrowing beyond what we've already indicated, and that it's not putting any further pressure in terms of our debt limits. It's basically within. It's purely a matter of timing, and it's already within what we've essentially indicated that we would have done or we will do.
Thanks, Councillor Jennings, and through you, Your Worship. Absolutely, that is what that means. So effectively, when we set the long-term plan, we had forecast that this year we'd spend a bit more, so roughly around $2 million more. The fact that we didn't end up spending that, and we are going to spend it next year, doesn't impact the ending borrowings position that we had planned for 24-25. So no overall impact in terms of the ending borrowings and what was expected. What it does do, though, is it does ease our pressure a little bit on interest. And that is because we had thought we would spend it sooner so that we would have a little bit more in interest costs. So that does help us to offset some of our interest costs.
Thanks, Jacinta.
I think there's no way that you can complete 100% of your CapEx program by the 30th of June on a specific little date. It's only the end of the financial year. The fact that we are carrying forward less than 5% of our total CapEx spend is, I think, probably the best result that we've seen for some years. So all those that are involved in that should be congratulated on being able to achieve what the target was, pretty much. So, I think it's a good position to be in as well. Councillor Brannigan.
Yeah, just like a comment from the project steering group. Dan and the team have brought these figures to us on a number of meetings in succession, and what they outlined to us in those meetings is pretty much what we've come up with, ended with. So with those carry forwards, so well done. It was a good effort for the team to get there. And it is, and you're right, it's all about timing, and it's timings.
Okay, Councillor.
Just a brief. I just wonder whether the 2.2 as it reads, which is purely capturing the carry forwards in Appendix 1, which I don't have a problem about any of that, full stop. But what I wonder is, I guess for the matter of public interest, is an additional sentence that reads the total capital spending budget will increase from 42.492 to 45.38. As an overall, this is what it's shifting to. Can we just? I'm just reading from 4.2,
Right.
And just asking for that one sentence to be added for clarity.
I think that's appropriate to have that in
I'll so move it if
Yep.
that's the case.
right. I'll just get Alice to add that sentence for me. So 2.2 on page 271. Maybe say appendix 1. Yeah.
Thanks, Councillor Tuckboy. Ideally, that should have been there in the first place, so thanks for reading that.
Right. So, if I read this rightly, Councillor Tukapua, the recommendation will now read: the Council approves the CapEx carry forwards to 2024-25 that are outlined in Appendix 1. The total capital spending budget for 24-25 will increase from 42.492 million to 45.384 million. So moved by Councillor Tukapua. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Brannigan. Any further discussion or debate? Put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Right, now moving to 7.4, the Local Government New Zealand Annual General Meeting 2024 remits. Move 2.1, 2.2 that the report be received, seconded by Deputy Mayor Allen. All those in favour? And 2.3, that Council authorises the Mayor to vote as the presiding delegate in accordance with the votes agreed in this resolution, and notes its previous resolution to appoint Councillors Tamihana and Grimstone as alternative delegates. Moved by Councillor Brannigan, seconded by Councillor Grimstone. No, you can't do that. Councillor Olsen, thank you. All those in favour? Against? Carried. So we will go through these remits one by one, and I'm looking for someone to move the remit in favour or against or abstain accordingly, and then we will, if needed, we can have a debate or a discussion and then vote on that recommendation accordingly. So would someone like to kick us off with remit number 1? Councillor Deputy Mayor Allen.
Mr. Mayor.
Move support. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Brannigan. Any further?
Just briefly, it's about representation reviews needing robust, up-to-date data on which to make decisions, Mr. Mayor.
Seems entirely reasonable, doesn't it? I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Right, remit number 2, the Council, the LGNZ advocate to Central Government to amend the Health Entitlement Cards Regulations 1993 so that the card holder can use the Community Services card as evidence for the purposes of accessing council services which would otherwise rely on a form of means testing. Moved.
Having a move in favour.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Grimstone. Is there any further debate or discussion on that? Put that recommendation. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Remit number 3, the LGNZ lobbies Central Government to ensure that Maori wards and constituencies are treated the same as all other wards and that they should not be subject to a referendum. We oppose the idea that Maori wards should be singled out and forced to suffer a public referendum. Do I have a mover? Moving Councillor Tamihana, seconded by Councillor Tukapua. Any further debate or discussion? Put the recommendation. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Thank you. Noted. Remit number 4. The LGNZ proactively promote and lobby to entrench the Maori wards and constituencies for the 64 councils which currently have these, to require the support of a supermajority of Parliament should either Parliament or councils seek their removal. My only question about this was, I didn't think 64 councils had Maori wards. I thought it was only in the region of 35 or so. Anyway, the remit is read. So, do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Tamihana is moving, seconded by Councillor Boyle. Any further debate or discussion?
Yes.
Councillor Jennings.
Yeah, look, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to say that I can't vote in favour of this because it's totally at odds with the previous remit in 2.7 that we've just voted to support.
2.6?
Sorry, 2.6, yeah. Because basically, on the one hand, that remit is saying treat multi-wards exactly the same. and then 2.7 is talking about entrenching them. So, yeah, look, so that for that reason, I can't support because it's totally inconsistent and it needs much more deeper policy analysis behind that.
Deputy Mayor Allen.
Just briefly, I support those comments from Councillor Jennings.
Councillor Boyle.
Yeah, happy to stand on the other side of this and say entrenching the concept of multi-wards is similar to entrenching the concept of having any wards. Yeah, to me it makes logical sense to entrench the concept that we have multi-wards as well as area wards.
Okay.
Call for a special.
Yes, I was just going to. Yeah. Okay, so I sense some opposing and pro views on this topic, remit. So we will call for a division, and in the order that I have, this is not. Oh, it's in alphabetical order. Okay, Deputy Mayor Allen.
Against.
Councillor Barker.
Against.
Councillor Boyle.
For.
Councillor Brannigan.
Against.
Councillor Grimstone.
Against.
Councillor Jennings.
Against.
Councillor Olsen.
Against.
Councillor Tamihana.
For.
Councillor Tukapua.
I'm confused. Oh, yeah, it isn't really making. I'm reading the detail again. It doesn't make sense. Sorry.
So abstaining. Against. And I will vote against. And Councillor Young.
Against.
Thank you. The motion is lost. So now moving to remit number 5, that LG&Z advocate for changes to the fee structure for driver licensing, better preparing young people for driver licensing testing, and greater testing capacity in key locations throughout New Zealand in order to relieve pressure on the driver licensing system and ensure testing can be conducted in a quick and efficient manner. Anyone prepared to move a recommendation in this? Councillor Boyle.
I'd like to move that we abstain on this one. Anyone want to?
I'll second pro forma.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Yeah, now I can talk on it, now having moved that. So this was brought forward due to wait times of NZTA licensing, which the people bringing it forward were blaming on the reduction of the resit fee or the abolition of the resit fee. The resit fee has been brought back by National just recently, hurrah, I'm not sure, which should push us back in the other direction. I think we as a council should abstain on this, given that it doesn't particularly affect our region, and I don't know if we want LG&Z to be focusing on this. The benefit for us locally isn't as high. Our processing times are all right, as far as I'm aware. I mean, I haven't had somebody go for a restricted license, but you can get it almost same day for letters. Yeah, there is less logic to it now with the fee structure having changed. Setting up a training centre for driver's licensing training in Ashburton isn't something that I think we should comment on. I think we should just abstain and let whoever's really interested in this deal with it.
Interesting that you should ask us to abstain, because I was going to propose that we actually vote against this, because I agree with everything that you say, and rather than abstaining, I think we should have a voice and actually say yes or no. And in this case, my view is that we should say no. So if the motion's lost, I'll be signalling that we will move that we vote against. Any further? And again, we will have a division on this so that we just get it right. Okay, so the motion is that we abstain on 2.8. So I'll start from the bottom. Councillor Young? It's no. I am voting against. Councillor Tupapua?
Against.
Councillor Tamihana? For. Councillor Olsen? Against. Councillor Jennings?
Yeah, against, so I can vote against in a minute.
Councillor Grimstone?
Against.
Councillor Brannigan?
Against.
Councillor Boyle?
I'll abstain for comedy value.
Councillor Barker?
Against.
And Deputy Mayor Allen?
I did a pro forma second just for the sake of hearing the argument. I'm now against.
Thank you. So the motion is lost, and that's space. Then I will move that we vote against remit number 5. Seconded. So everyone put their hands up very quickly. I heard Councillor Brannigan, so seconded by Councillor Brannigan. Is there a need for a division? Can I just ask for a show of hands? All those in favour of voting against that remit? Thank you. So noting the two that Councillor Tamihana, you're voting against abstaining, and Councillor Barker? Against. Thank you. I didn't see your hand, sorry. All right, so the motion is carried. Thank you. Moving to remit number 6. The LGNZ for legislative change enabling local authorities to compel building owners to remediate unoccupied derelict buildings and sites that have deteriorated to a state where they negatively impact the amenity of the surrounding area, and B, to incentivise repurposing vacant buildings to meet region-specific needs, for example, accommodation conversion. Do I have someone? Councillor Deputy Mayor Allen.
I move that we vote against this.
Is there a seconder for that?
Yeah, similar. I was going to ask a question around that first bullet that I imagine is something that individual councils could do through a bylaw, and then the second one is you incentivise through strategies within your own council. So I don't know why they're not doing that.
So I'll take Councillor Jennings' seconding of that motion. So it's now on the table. Deputy Mayor Allen.
To me, Mr Mayor, it's a step too far. If there are health and safety issues, there's already provision to act on that. But this is now about stepping into the rights of private ownership. It's about good taste policing, essentially. And there may well be issues around affordability for the owners, a number of other reasons why they cannot act. And for us to move in because we deem it to be an eyesore, derelict building, I think is a step too far.
Councillor Brannigan.
Yeah, just on this one, I just want a little bit of clarity from officers, if possible. David or Vi, around does our district plan currently sufficiently deal with these types of situations, derelict buildings, and there's one that's been brought to my attention recently that we'll be sending through to Vi to have a look at, but also sites. And as I understand our district plan, I say sites in urban areas where there's overgrowth in urban sections with no buildings on them, etc. As I understand it, currently our district plan doesn't deal with it, but for strengthened district plan, could that sufficiently deal with it without having to go to this extent? And that's, I guess, a rough question if you can make some sense out of it.
Yeah, it's a term called insanitary building that we've used.
Vi, do you want to, or David?
I don't think our district plan goes this far in terms of the derelict nature. There are some provisions in there around keeping storage areas and some other unsightly bits, wrecked vehicles and things like that, are meant to be screened and so on. but doesn't really define the derelict or the abandoned nature and require or have controls around that. Could the district plan be strengthened? You could put some definition around that and then bring in a rule around that. It then becomes a compliance and enforcement matter. Obviously, you'd want a clear trigger point as to when something's gone from being vacant to derelict and then requiring action. But I think it's probably not a widespread problem within our district, and so we'd probably question whether it warrants a complete sort of addition or piece of work into the district plan to address that. If it was more widespread, then maybe that might be the right course of action. I'm not sure if I will add to my answer.
Thank you, David. Maybe just to add around the dangerous and unsanitary buildings policy. So under the Building Act, we do have a dangerous and unsanitary and effective buildings policy that does allow us to, as Councillor Allen has already suggested, does allow us to deal with health and safety matters around any dangers that might be posed by the state particular building. So that's currently in place at the moment in terms of policy.
Councillor Jennings, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Ms. Mayor. I was just going to follow on from Deputy Mayor Allen and say absolutely agree with everything he said. This is a gross intrusion on private property rights. Don't support it at all. And you know, I find it difficult saying that because we are live-in as a town that has a property on its fringe that is messy and unsightly, and it would be great to have powers to force that, but that shouldn't be outweighed by those private property rights. So yeah, I don't support us supporting this at all.
Thank you. Okay, so the motion is to be against this remit. I'll put that. All those in favour of that, please raise your hands. Against? Councillor Boyle, so noted. So the motion is carried. Thank you. All right, remit number 7, that LGNZ proactively promote and lobby for the development of a more equitable and appropriate funding model for central government initiatives. Someone like to move or against or for that motion?
Totally for.
Totally for, yes. Yeah. So moved by Deputy Mayor Allen, seconded by Councillor Tamihana. Any further, Councillor Deputy Mayor?
At the heart of this, it's saying to central government, if you tell us to do something, how about paying for it? I'd like to see anyone vote against.
Yeah, you do wonder at the point of these remits, though, as to whether they're going to gain any traction with any government in terms of that. But I suppose we can only but try. So, any further discussion or debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. And remit number 8, that LGNZ be proactive in lobbying central government on sharing GST revenue with local government derived from local government rates and service fees related to flood protection, mitigation, roading and three waters for investment in these areas. It's moved by Councillor Tugapua, seconded by Deputy Mayor Allen. Anyone wish to speak on that?
Yeah, it's long overdue.
To be honest, I wondered why they've picked out those particular pieces. That's all. I just think that it just should stop at anything. But I suppose this is a start. So I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you very much. So noted. I will follow the table's instructions in terms of that voting method and do so willingly. All right, moving on. We are now at 8.1 on page 331, where we're the Horowhenua District Council Organisation Performance Report for June 2024. And can I move 2.1 and 2.2 that the report be received? Moved by seconded by Councillor Olsen. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Now look, there are officers obviously that are prepared to answer questions
in terms of this report. Does anybody have comments, questions, or seeking clarification on anything? Deputy Mayor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And again, look, just a wonderfully deep, rich report. Can't say it often enough what value this adds, not just to us, but to the community at large. Question around destination management, page 368, the major event fund. Is there a timeline for when a decision will be made on that? And apologies if that information has already been shared.
Just finding the page in terms of the time frame that you're referring to. Could you just help me there?
It's page 368 where it addresses the major event fund, how expressions of interest have been put out, just whether or not whether we have a timeline when it will close and when a decision will be made by council.
The intent is that it stays open, so it runs and people apply for that as an event activity idea comes up, and so at the moment we have one expression of interest that's come in that gets considered, and then we'll go through into that next part with my understanding is then once the application forms are completed and all the necessary information provided, then it will go into that next stage of the decision making process. So the fund is set up, and now it's out for people to put forward expressions of interest, but that's on a rolling basis. There's not a defined closed period for people to submit those by.
Councillor Grimstone. It seems we can't get through a council meeting without asking a question, but referring to the council action monitoring report in relation to the lease of the cafe, have we got a level of confidence that this will finally be signed off at the end of July as per the commentary in the report?
Through you, Your Worship, yes, we're hoping to have it signed tomorrow.
Cool, good. Thank you. I do have a question just in relation to the statement of rates and debtors. So, noting in the report it's reduced since the November 23 report from 1.3 to about 700,000, a little over 700,000. I'm just keen to understand, the question I wrote myself here is our debt collection timely enough? And at what point do we refer to mortgagee holders for fulfilment of that?
Thanks, through Your Worship. We, in terms of the debt collection, we have tightened up a lot on that in the last couple of years. And so as soon as the year finishes, so we're just in the final stages of closing everything off, but effectively then anything that is unpaid from the prior year above a certain dollar amount goes directly to Debt Management Central for them to start operating on straight away. And then where any debt gets to a point where it might be appropriate from Debt Management Central's perspective for us to go to judgment or to progress to rating sales if something has progressed for a long time, then we have, over the last 18 months, consistently moved that as quickly as we can. And that has been not from a perspective of trying to be tough on people, but from a perspective of trying to encourage and work with people as quickly as possible to get good payment arrangements in place and to help them to get their rates on track. Because we found with a few of them we've left it in the past, things have been left a little bit too long.
Councillor Jennings, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to give you a preview of the sort of three topics I wanted to cover is target reserve, then the Livinable accessible park, and just the consenting space. Are you happy if I just kick off with the target reserve questions for Brent?
Certainly.
Yep. So, Brent, it's fair to say, obviously we had the public submission from Rick before. And I have to say, confess, I'm pretty annoyed about the whole situation in terms of some of the representations that are being made about council. And so I just wanted to give you the opportunity to just, I guess, reject or comment on the assertion that the MOU, one, is binding, two, that provides for exclusive use by the mountain biking group, and three, that there's no reference in that MOU to sharing, because certainly my reading of the MOU is there is no exclusive use, and in fact it includes references to how that group will share the space.
Thank you, Councillor Jennings, and through you, Your Worship. You are right. The intention is through the MOU that we do intend that to be a shared space. In terms of some of the commentary earlier, while the tracks are being constructed by the mountain bike fraternity, we have asked that to limit the horse riding activity through the reserve. But the intention is moving forward through the development plan. There are options for both mountain biking and equestrian to coexist, along with the other activities at Target Reserve. Also, you're correct, in the MOU it does talk about public access to the reserve, so it's by no means exclusive for the mountain bike club and their activity.
Thanks, Brent. And sorry, just the final point on that question on that is that obviously as part of the development of the development plan, there will be an extensive consultation process. And so the fact that we haven't talked to people about that or consulted people yet is because we haven't got a development plan to consult on yet.
Yes, Councillor Jennings, that's correct.
Thank you. Just the next question through you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm just not sure whether it's appropriate to talk about this in public setting, just in terms of the Horowhenua project and some of those other parcels of land that had been programmed for disposal. Would you prefer me to take that offline?
Yes, I would at this stage. Horowhenua will be a topic of conversation with Horowhenua over the next week or so.
Sure. Okay. No, that's fine. Happy with that. And then just on the in the consenting space, I think it's on page 355. Just wanted to comment again. Thanks, Blair, for the really sort of good overview there in terms of how we're tracking with consent applications. And just wanted to, again, just provide Blair with an opportunity just to speak to kind of what we're seeing in terms of those trends in terms of applications and consents trending down, and I guess the impact and how you're managing the revenue assumptions and because obviously less applications will mean less revenue, which then potentially exacerbates the issue of resource management and securing the kind of resources that we need as well in terms of those key roles.
Through your worship, that's a good question, Sam. The demand's fluctuating a bit still. We're sort of not doing too bad, I guess, when compared to other districts, but yeah, there are a number of challenges in there around obviously what our sort of baseline cost is to serve and to get the outcomes that we're after or we're required to achieve. We've had some issues, particularly in the high-end commercial space, where we had limited skill availability to the extent that we sort of ended up through some unforeseen circumstances early in the year having only a partial resource to help. There are some tasks in council that can only be approved by council officers, so we can't actually outsource or externalise some of their work, so we have got caught in some instances in that space. So securing resources, as you point out, and trying to get that to fit and match demand is critical. We're doing a lot of work at present to try to align our sort of financial position and really truly understand our activity-based costs, and then apply that to our demand so that we can come to council in future with a much clearer picture around sort of forecasting and projecting what our earnings will look like and what sort of impact demand will have on that position.
We have a baseline of costs that we have to cover to maintain service. If we go below that, then obviously it can not look as pretty as normal.
Thanks, Blair. Keep up the good work. Looking really well. Looking really good in that space. Thanks.
Cassie Tipperfoot.
Yeah, just cover 3 pages. So the first one is 353. Really pleased to see the installation at Te Araroa Trail on Tokomaru Valley Road. It's awesome. Second thing on that page, I just want to acknowledge and thank Brent for his follow-up with the Donnelly Park neighbours regarding those screen posts. And I guess just a little bit of learning that I guess if we get our columns right, then we won't have to request of our ELT to do follow-ups. I mean, I hate to use your time doing stuff like that, but I thank you for your responsiveness. It's really great. The second thing, page 368, regarding the results of the resident satisfaction survey. Our leadership looks really cool. Just that's what it looks like. But the positives, though, on the page around council facilities, the highest rated being libraries and cemeteries, people are satisfied with, and that the low end stormwater, that won't be a surprise for us, and swimming pools. Hopefully we'll get on top of that. But I wondered the vision and delivery manager could, I guess, give us a bit more commentary around the results overall and highlight anything there other than what I just did.
Oh, look, I'm not too sure I can add much more to what's there. Obviously, the process goes out and people get the ability to complete these surveys. Over 5,600 surveys completed, which is a slight decrease on the response from the previous year, but still a significant portion of our community assessing those things. As you identify, sometimes it can be an event or an occurrence that's happened at a particular time. Often I think there can be the recency bias can sometimes influence things. So if it has been particularly wet or something like that just before surveys go out, then that can sometimes influence why things that people respond the way they do, or what's been, I guess, at the front of their minds. But you're right, there is some things to be very proud of within that space, and obviously continue to be some areas which, as a leadership team, executive leadership team, we will be continuing to explore and look at, well, what are those things that might have influenced the scoring, and where are those things that we need to sort of lean into and see how we can raise the scores in the future years.
Yeah. So I've already pointed it out, but they reckon the mayor and councillors are 47%. Like, okay. Moving on to page 375. I really like the whole specifics around, it's at the bottom of the page, and that, we've done 1,040 potholes and we've done this many open water channels, and goes on to say road signs, etc. That kind of information, because we're criticised about the lack of potholes, or those sorts of ongoing. I mean, I worked it out. If you're working 5 days a week, that's 260 days a year. That's 4 potholes a day. That's pretty good, I think, all year round. And some of this is perhaps we could just really put it out. It needs to be more visible, I guess. People know that we're doing stuff, getting stuff done. Because which resident's going to read that? It's just nice to have, boom, we've done this, dum, 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 dum. And here you go, you can put it on through our channel, so you can just, do you know what I'm saying? The other thing that reminds me of is we asked about the program of footpaths that'll be scheduled for a particular year, and could that be on our website so people know that their footpath's coming up this year, next year, whatever, and then they don't have to ring up and say, when are you fixing this, because they know it's on the radar. It was just a quick way of being able to inform the public, and whether that's still happening, could you send me a link if it is already there, or whether it's to come.
We just in preparations for a capital project steering group next Wednesday, starting to do a bit of a deep dive around the likes of our 3-year Forwards work program in the water space. So I will come next week in terms of where we are with the status of the year ahead program, and the timing for us to get some communications out around that. So you're noting that some of the information is embedded in the document. So hearing the message that we want to be communicating future works in our roading space, including paths, and also telling the story around the good work that's been delivered over the last 12 months.
Councillor Tamihan.
Kia ora, guys. Good report to read through. Lots going on in there. I did want to ask, it'd be good to see some in the resource consenting space, some data perhaps where iwi are engaged. That's just purely for my own reference for the people I represent. It'd be good to know where they are and where they aren't engaged in terms of that consenting space. Land transport activity, as well as on page 3990 to now, neither of them reference East-West Aotearoa, which interests me. So I just note that. I don't know if it's missing or whether it's not meant to be in there, but I would have thought it was an activity in either of those spaces. I think it's the Foxton Pool in here, around the lanes. As a user of the pool, yeah, it is a bit of a concern, but I was also a little bit concerned about the options. I hope that the options that we're exploring don't take away the liability of doing it properly once. And I've heard that from several people in Foxton that are using the pool and seeing the effect of a new pool and all the paint coming off. It's so obvious. So I suppose the word from me is I really, I'd rather see the pool shut down and done properly than an interim measure if that comes, if the person that did it doesn't do the full repair later. That's my concern. Page 410, Council Mark, just picking up on Deputy Mayor Allen's kōrero this morning and just making sure that we amend that to Te Korowai. I think that would be appropriate here to do that as well. And 412, page 412, I really like how you put the program and how we do it. I wonder why we aren't allowed to name external consultants or internal staff in those slides. Is it a commercial sensitivity thing, or are we actually allowed to disclose who are doing these types of works on behalf of council? Just a question. Thank you.
Brent, did you want to respond around the pool issue first?
Through your worship, thank you, Councillor Tamihana. Yeah, the interim step is temporary. We are still having conversations with the supplier of the pool liner around the permanent fix, which they'll be doing free of charge. And it's important that we program that accordingly because it's likely to impact Learn to Swim and a number of our programs. So it is a bit of a tricky one to navigate when the best time to do it is. While the report says 2 weeks shutdown, I envisage it would potentially be a bit longer than that, given it takes us a week to heat the pool and the work that needs to be done. It's important it's done right.
Sorry, Councillor Tamihana, your question around page 14, was it, in the consultants? What? Sorry, what?
Sorry, 412 was that one.
412.
So we just, in our chart, as you go down, it just names that we use external consultants or we use a mix of internal and external. And I just wondered whether, is that information not allowed to be publicly displayed?
I can through you, Your Worship. The one at the top there is one which I'll be responsible for, the Economic Development Section 17A review. The reason why it's referenced as external consultant in that case is because we haven't appointed the consultant yet. It's a process we will go through. I don't see any problem when we have appointed that for that information to be made available. I suspect, because I think I'm anticipating the economic one to be the first of these to probably go, I suspect that's the same situation for the others. It's just the consultant hasn't actually been appointed yet.
Councillor Brand. Yeah, just really a comment on Brent's area, fit for purpose infrastructure, community outcome, develop, maintain facilities, infrastructure, etc. So I would be remiss not to mention that the rugby club champions for 2024 is the mighty Foxton rugby team. Outstanding performance on Saturday, defeating an undefeated Rahui here at the Living Domain, but also acknowledging how the Brent's team do work with the clubs, and we are going to find a solution for the lighting at Eastern Park, despite us still being the club champions. So I just wanted to mention that.
Well, my comment would be they don't need the new lights. If they're champions, they can probably... Deputy Mayor Allen.
I'd make my comment or question that's in the shadow of the sunshine shown by Councillor Brannigan with his comment, but I refer to page 395, the public housing initiatives, and it's great to see the increase in stock for those in need. My question, Blair, and we did talk briefly about it before the meeting, is around the government pivoting from a focus on Konaora to community housing and the implications locally of that change in focus for us.
Through Your Worship, yes, the nature and extent of what's been proposed is not yet fully known. So, as Mayor Bernie alluded, there are some discussions ongoing as to direct impact. But yes, government, I guess nationally, is pivoting away from the housing development program as it stands towards greater involvement of CHIPs or community-led initiatives. So. We will have to, in time, pivot also into that space and really just refocus where we put our effort in terms of engaging and enabling people to contribute.
And finally, I've got a few questions and comments, if you don't mind. And just bear with me because it's such a big report. I need to flick a few pages. But first of all, a comment around the work of the field technicians installing our leak detection meters. It's been a wonderful example of Mayor's Task Force's job being able to initiate or get involved in this program, and the progress that is being made in that space is fantastic to see in those numbers. Can I also comment on the Economic Development Implementation Plan? I don't know why this is, but recently there was a digital care program initiated where we had one participant who turned 101 in June tell us how much this was meant to her. She's getting herself a new smartphone so she can use Talk to Next text and a front-facing camera to do video calling with her family. Fantastic to see those sorts of outcomes on that sort of thing. I did have a question around the Foxton pools and the toilets. Sorry, what was my... Daniel, just in terms of the Section 17A timeline for the solid waste program, is that this financial year? It is, because our contracts end, don't they?
Yes, correct. We're in the process of standing that team up to get that underway this financial year.
Did have a question around page 386, and it talks about the Living Water Treatment Plant backwash ponds are running at maximum level.
and actively working on a solution to address the issue. Can you just update us in terms of where that sits?
Yeah, effectively the issue is around the filtration of the water. So as the water comes out of the river, it goes through a treatment process which has chemicals and sand. Some of that effectively material gets dragged through the treatment, gets removed from the system. So we know with a pond where it's stored, and that pond is effectively filling up with sand. We've got to look at a way to get rid of it. One solution is obviously truck it to landfill, significant costs. So the team are doing a number of trials around firstly optimising to reduce the amount of material that's building up, but also around processes we could use to recycle or repurpose that material. So there'll be an update in the next OPR on how that's progressed.
Thank you. And my other question was around the inlet sewer trunk main, reaching its end of its useful life. What risks are we, at with that? And I know we've got, just remind us of maybe a replacement or upgrade is due, when it's due.
There's funding set aside this financial year. We have a deep dive briefing on the 7th of August where we'll look at the entire wastewater treatment plant, and that's ahead of upcoming decisions around the location of the treatment plant, but also the work we've commissioned to actually look at what is a concept level design, so the type of plant that will be used, and those key decisions are quite linked to the upgrade. So we're looking to really lock down the type of plant, the location, before we invest in the upgrade of that section of pipe. So there'll be a deep dive session on the 7th. We'll share some information in advance, and you'll start to see some quite regular information coming around that particular pipe, but the wider plant risks around the seismic state of, or the functional state and capacity restraints around the entire treatment process. So you can certainly look forward to that one on the horizon.
Cool, thank you. Any further? Jacinta.
Thanks through you, Your Worship. There's a couple of points in Councillor Grimson. Firstly, in regards to your question around the debt, is one thing absolutely going forward. We will make sure that when we report comparing to the last year and ideally to the year before as well for the given month we are reporting, so that helps with that understanding. What I wanted to do is, because the financial report just talks up to the end of May, and in that report we talk about the fact that we're tracking well towards the underlying surplus. I'm going to talk about the underlying surplus. That is effectively everything we're spending in the business, excluding CapEx, but also excluding rates, depreciation, and interest. So it's the things we can control. We're close to finally closing the year so that we can start the preparation of the annual report. But in doing so, we have the organisation in terms of all the conversations, the work that the entire business has done to where we can not spend money if we don't have to, has resulted in the organisation being in a position to report an underlying surplus of approximately 1.8 to 1.9 million. So that is more favourable than we had originally anticipated, with that being at $1 million. You could argue, say, why didn't you land exactly where you thought you would? I guess from our side, I would say there's some areas where we might have anticipated things being slightly different, but also that effort, real effort across everywhere to really not spend what they don't have to, is a good testament to all the work that everybody's done. So where they thought we might land a little bit higher, the work to really pull back has resulted in it being a better result than we had anticipated. So happy to take any questions, but I just wanted to signal that at this stage.
Councillor Tukupa.
May I just ask one more question? It's a real and I can get the answer later, but regarding the SSPs and those end results, 24 not achieved out of 188. Next year, the current year, will look quite different now that we've reduced a whole lot. But how many of the 24 are no longer required this year versus will carry on? I just get that later. Yeah.
If that's okay, we might need to come back to you on that one. Yeah.
Look, just noting Jacinta's comments there, I think that's a great result in terms of where we were sitting probably 3 or 4 months ago. A fantastic amount of work being done to try and find those efficiencies, which has resulted in those sorts of savings. We need to acknowledge the work that's gone into doing that for sure. All right, thank you, and I really appreciate the input into that organisation performance report. It is an important document and does need to does reflect the huge amount of work that is going on. So really good to get that feedback from everybody. Moving on to 8.2 on page 477. Oh, sorry, just as Alice is on my case. 2.3, having considerable matters raised in the organisation performance report to 30 June 2024, the report be noted. So moved, seconded by Deputy Mayor Allen. All those in favour? Against, carried. Thank you, Alice. Right, elected members meeting attendance statistics 1 December 2023 to 30th June 2024. Can I move 2.1 and 2.2? Seconded by Deputy Mayor Allen. Any comments that anyone wishes to make? Good. Moving on. Councillor Tukapu, sorry.
Yeah, just compared to this, the report we received 6 months ago, we used percentages rather than just ticks and A's and whatnot that's in the report. So I requested it before the meeting, and in light of the 47% rating we got from the resident satisfaction survey, yeah, this is not only this, I'm just pointing out that not only these meetings, but like, for example, only community wellbeing is mentioned, but actually there's 5 committees underneath that: education, Horowhenua, older persons, the youth network, access and inclusion, that are behind all of these that we all go to, as well as other community groups that were appointed to as part of council, and that's really so it's not quite a true reflection of all that we do and all the hours that go behind this, as well as your reading. So I think giving community or the public better visibility of the actual workings of the council, or even you, Mayor Bernie, so they don't, I don't know, so they don't think we just sit here in these, we got called big fat cat chairs or something. Remember that comment? Yeah, I just wish they'd understand a little bit better, and they won't if we don't show them.
This graph or table is in your portal, so you can actually access it as well. And I know that Ash is looking at different ways that we can improve this, aren't you, in terms of slight modifications maybe. Is there any comment you want to make on that? Okay, cool. Councillor Tony Hunter.
Yeah, I just wanted to support what Councillor Tukapu was saying, actually, because especially to those council appointed roles that aren't on there, like Save Our River Trust, Fox and Futures, none of the progressive stuff's on there, and those are some of the groups that do reach out about us being absent. So I think that it doesn't really tell the whole picture as Peru's identified.
You are all welcome to feed into the Merrill report. If you've got your outside agencies or organisations that you represent that you wish to get some sort of prominence for those, you're welcome to feed into that report. And I had made the suggestion at the start of the term that every 6 months or so, or a year, I would see some sort of feedback from those organisations that you represent, but I haven't sort of pushed that, but I'd welcome it. Deputy Mayor Allen.
Just a quick follow-up in response to Councillor Tamihan. Some of those outside organisations keep excellent minutes, and I referenced SORT as one example, Camera Trust being another, and just being able to attach those minutes to the agenda would be very helpful. And in the case of SORT, of course, with the current work underway with Foxton Futures, the community plan, it's very apposite, a very good timing perhaps to have that sort of stuff simply attached. It's no extra work in real terms.
If that PDF or whatever it is could be put up on the website or something for a simple download, is that possible?
I'm sure we can do that. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And just in reference to your comment about our percentage only being 46.5 or what it is, it's more than the number of people that vote. So only 41% or something vote. So we're actually not doing too bad. All right, moving on. 8.3, the endorsement of council plan on a page. Could I move 2.1, 2.2, that the council plan on a page be received? Seconded by Councillor Brannigan. All those in favour? And I'm wondering, Councillor Jennings, would you like to comment on the council plan on a page refresh review that we've done?
Yeah, look, happy to, Mr. Mayor, if you... Yep.
Yes, I would.
Sure.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, just to thank councillors, I guess, for arriving at this point, and obviously Monique and her team in terms of supporting us to get there. So basically, this plan, just for the public, is a bit of a revisit or a refresh of our current plan on a page, and so how this has been developed is essentially through a couple of sessions with elected members, where there's been some brainstorming and then some work behind the scenes, and then bringing that back again for some further refinement and some wordsmithing. And where we've landed is obviously a plan on a page that represents sort of 12 key focus areas, but we've also been quite realistic with what we're hoping to achieve in the next 12 months. And I think that it's fair to say that there's a huge to-do list there, and it's certainly an ambitious plan. But yeah, look, I think that there's been a lot of careful thought into terms of really being clear about where we want attention and focus and energy. And so just to thank again elected members and the council team for getting us to this point. And it's, I guess, now hopefully we can adopt it, and it's now then about continuing that journey of delivery and focus. So yeah, that's enough from me.
Thank you. And can I just acknowledge on behalf of the table the amount of work that you've put into this personally. It is appreciated. Thank you. All right, any further debate or discussion on this? Put the recommendation 2.3 that council endorses the council plan on a page, noting it sets out council's top 12 priorities.
All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Moving to 8.5, the long-term plan 2024, shall we say? 2044 monitoring report. Move 2.1, 2.2 that the report be received, seconded by Councillor Young. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Any items on that monitoring report that councillors wish to seek clarification or ask questions on? Councillor Tokopua.
Page 492 for Brent, and this is CO 2023-219. Wondered why it just refers to Te Porihe and not Te Tū Matakahi on behalf of all Raikohapu.
Thank you, Councillor Tukapua, and
through you, Your Worship. Well, the intention there is that we are trying to engage with all of our partners. So absolutely, we'll be engaging with Te Tū Matakauki regarding the first right of refusal. Apologies, and Lacey might have something more to add. She's just looked at me.
Thank you, and through you, Your Worship. Just to clarify that there is some wording that is missed off that. We have already received some feedback from Te Tū Matakauki, which we're just working through to go back to them with, but also liaise with both MTA and Te Kōrehī as well.
And apologies, I got out of order. I actually introduced 8.5 instead of 8.4, which you rightly made a comment on. So can we just go back to 2.1, 2.2 of 8.4, that the Council Resolution and Actions Monitoring Report be received? Can I have a second? Councillor Tukapua, all those in favour? Against, carried. So that was page 489. And are there any other items in that monitoring report that need action or talking about? Councillor Brennan.
Yes, please, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I'll get to you in a minute, Councillor Jennings.
Yeah, it was for Monique, but I'll just raise it. Bernie, I might get you to perhaps note it. It's around 2023-146 on 492. We're in the Marine Boating Club dock, etc. And I think that's basically things have moved on a little bit from what's here. I just wonder if that needs a bit of a refresh in terms of what is outstanding to do in that space. And I have emailed Monique, but haven't a reply yet. But I just wanted to signal that perhaps you can note it if that conversation that needs to be looked at in terms of this monitoring report, because that doesn't fit the context of where things are at now.
So noted. Thank you. Councillor Jennings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to pick up on two things. Just to pick up on the line of questioning that Councillor Tukapua raised, just around the first right of refusal. So that's 219. I just want to make sure that everyone is on the same page and that we're really clear that obviously the decision is still going to come back to the council table, right? So the development of the framework is what the framework could look like if council finally determines to include this in the disposal property disposal strategy. Like, we're not predetermining a decision that hasn't yet been made around whether to actually include it in the strategy or not. This is about exploring what it could look like so that we can then make an informed decision. I just want to check that my understanding of the situation is clear.
That is the situation. I'm getting nods of approval from Lacey that is certainly the case.
Cool. And then just the other one was the first one there, 166. And I think I heard Brent say earlier in the meeting, unfortunately it just broke up, that they're proposing to sign a lease tomorrow. And can I just check that? And if it's not signed tomorrow, can I just understand what the process looks like from there? Because this one's been on this list for so long, and it's my kind of feeling that we need to really put pressure on that business to either commit or not commit, and we can look at other options. So kind of like a final chance.
Thank you, Councillor Jennings, and through you, Your Worship. Yes, fair to say there has been some pressure put on regarding the signing of the lease, and hence why the deadline we've provided them is tomorrow. Our officer, who has been working closely with them, is actually been away this week, but we are actively following up and anticipating that lease to be signed tomorrow. If not, then there'll be a subsequent conversation with the cafe around the next steps and what that looks like for them.
You're okay with that response, Councillor Jennings?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Brent.
Councillor Tamihan.
Thanks. It was just really a subsequent point to Sam's point. Does that, given that we've just been notified about the other cafe, does that give scope to you, Brent, I suppose, in terms of that lease being signed tomorrow and is there a potential to extend those conversations given our other location now? Just putting it out there.
Thank you, Councillor Tamihana, through your worship. Historically, the short answer is yes. We can have a conversation with them regarding the other side. When I first started with council, they had both, and there was rationale for why they decided to give up that lease to focus on one. So, but it doesn't preclude us having a conversation tomorrow. But the focus obviously is us to try and get a lease signed.
Thank you for that.
All right, moving on to 8.5, the Long-Term Plan 2024-2044 Monitoring Report. Again, do we need to move that again? 2.1, 2.2, the report be received. Seconded by Councillor Olsen. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Any items on that monitoring report that councillors wish to ask about? All right, Councillor Tupupu.
Yeah, on page 503, letter H, I wondered if Brent spoke of a matrix that they were working through, which got them to a good space. Could we see a copy or request a copy of that?
Through your worship, yes, we can get a copy of that. The matrix that's been agreed with club and council, sure.
Okay. All right, moving to 9.1, which is the proceedings of the Te Awaho Foxton Community Board 1 July 2024. Can I just move 2.1 that the report be received and the minutes noted, seconded by Deputy Mayor Allen. All those in favour? Against? Carried. There is a recommendation from the Te Awaho Foxton Community Board 2.2 that council approve funding for $37,772 from the Foxton Beach Endowment Fund as a grant towards the upgrade of the wharekai at Motuiti Marae. Do I have a mover? Any questions first about that before I seek a mover and a seconder? Deputy Mayor Allen.
Happy to move, Mr.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Do I have a second? Well, thank you. All right, so the motion's on the table. Do you want to speak to it?
Speaking to it, first of all, to note that I was an apology for that meeting. I was unable to make it. And Mr. Girling sends his apologies. He had another meeting he needed to go to. However, he assured me, and in fact the minutes reflect, that there was a very strong recommendation with only one dissenting voice to that resolution. And so I'm very happy to move it and to support the will of the board on that.
It should also be noted that there was representation from the Motuiti Marae at the Te Awaho Foxton Community Board meeting, and there was no sort of consideration that they attend today because they had spoke very positively at the Foxton Te Awaho Community Board meeting. So I will put that recommendation. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. All right, moving to 9.2, which is the proceedings of the Community Funding and Recognition Committee from the 3rd of July. Move 2.1 that the proceedings of that committee be received and the minutes noted. Seconded by Councillor Tupapua. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Julia, thank you. Welcome. All yours.
Kia ora koutou. So this is the proceeding report for the Community Funding and Recognition Committee for the meeting that was held on Wednesday, 3 July. We do have committee members around the table, but given there were some changes to our community funding, it would be helpful for me to provide a brief introduction on those changes and help answer any questions. There were 4 main changes. The first was the establishment of an Urupa fund, which has 30,000 allocated to it. This will open in round 2 on 1st of February 2025. Additionally, there's been a youth development fund established with $17,000 allocated to it, and that will be accessible year round. This is in addition to $8,000 set aside for our youth awards, noting that each recipient of a youth award will now receive $500 up from $250. And some changes to our existing funds are that we have replaced the Vibrant Communities and Community Development Fund with the Community Events and Program Fund, and this has $80,000 allocated to it over 2 rounds. And we have replaced the Community and Social Services Fund and the Special Projects Fund with the Operations and Small Assets Fund, which has $50,000 allocated for 1 round. These changes are in an effort to help simplify our funding categories, reducing confusion for applicants, and also introducing some new initiatives that will enhance our funding program. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions from the table.
Thank you, Julia. Any questions for Julia or Brett? Cool. Got off lightly. All right, so we have recommendation 2.2, which basically follows what Julia's just informed us, and also noting that 2.3, that Council noted further report will be presented at its next meeting, amending the Community Funding and Recognition Committee's terms of reference and delegations. Councillor Tukupu, are you happy to move these recommendations? Thank you. Seconded by Deputy Mayor Allen. Is there any discussion or debate or any comment from you as Chair, Councillor Tukupu?
No, I guess to give everyone confidence, we all know who's in that committee. It's about 5 of us, including Mayor Burney, and plenty of questions were had and information provided. I think we obviously made amendments before the version that you see, so hopefully this satisfies and it's acceptable.
Okay, any further? With that, I will put that recommendation 2.2 and 2.3. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Now moving to 9.3, the proceedings of the Chief Executive Performance and Employment Committee of the 10th of July 2024. Just 2.1, that the report proceedings of that committee be received and the minutes noted. Seconded by Deputy Mayor Allen. All those in favour? Against? Carried. All right, that brings us to the end of our open agenda. I'd just like to move that we now go into committee, that the public be excluded from the following parts of the proceedings, where we will consider item C1, Chief Executive Delegations regarding the Levin landfill leachate migration remediation contract. C2, proceedings of the public excluded Chief Executive Performance and Employment Committee. And C3, Council Resolution and Actions Monitoring Report for July 2024. Could I have a seconder for that, please? Seconded, Councillor Tamihana, thank you. Not at this stage, no. We may comment on that as part of some time afterwards, if you like. But I'll move that recommendation. All those in favour? Against? Carried.